There are ghost towns, and then there's a ghost village that was never meant to be one. Imagine this. A hunter stumbles upon a remote Arctic village, campfires still warm, food still on the table, but every man, woman, and child is gone. No struggle, no footprints in the snow, no answers, just silence. The collector has searched the darkest corners of lost history, but few tales are as strange, chilling, and utterly impossible to explain as the disappearance of the Anjikuni Village. This isn't a story of one missing person. It's the disappearance of an entire community. And it's one of the coldest cases on Earth. The frozen wilderness of Anjikuni Lake. Our story begins in November 1930, deep in the icy wilderness of northern Canada, near Anjikuni Lake, a remote area in what is now Nunavut. Few people traveled this far north. It was the domain of the Inuit, whose villages dotted the snowy landscape, surviving against the harshest conditions nature could offer. One man who knew this land well was Joe LaBelle, a seasoned Canadian fur trapper and hunter. He had passed through the area many times and knew one Inuit settlement in particular, a small village near the lake, where he could always expect a warm welcome and friendly faces. But what he found that winter would haunt him forever. An empty village, but something was wrong. As Joe LaBelle approached the Anjikuni settlement, something felt off. There was no sound, no dogs barking, no people shouting, no smoke from the chimneys. And when he entered the village, he realized the horror. The entire population was gone. LaBelle found empty huts, but they weren't deserted like people had moved away. It was like they had vanished in an instant. Meals were still laid out, untouched. Clothes were hanging as if ready to be worn. Weapons and supplies were still in place. Even rifles, critical for survival in the Arctic, had been left behind. This wasn't just strange, it was unthinkable. No Inuit family would ever leave behind their weapons or food in the middle of winter. Then LaBelle found something worse. The sled dogs, a chilling discovery. Behind the village, LaBelle discovered the community's sled dogs, still tied to their posts. All of them were dead. They hadn't been shot or attacked. They had starved to death, still bound, suggesting they had been left behind for days without food or care. How could this happen? If the villagers had planned to leave, they would have taken the dogs, their only transportation across the ice. It seemed like something had forced them to leave, fast. The grave-robbing mystery label continued exploring and found something even more disturbing. The village burial site, a sacred ground for the Inuit, had been dug up. Graves were opened and bodies were missing. In Inuit culture, disturbing the dead is unheard of. It is a spiritual taboo. And in the dead of winter, it would have been incredibly difficult to dig through the frozen ground. Who or what would go to such extremes? LaBelle was terrified. He made his way to the nearest telegraph office and sent a message to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP. The RCMP investigation begins. Shortly after Joe LaBelle's frantic report, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, dispatched a team to Anjikuni Lake. Their goal, verify LaBelle's claim and find out what really happened. When they arrived, what they found matched his story in almost every way. The village was abandoned, eerily intact, but completely lifeless. The sled dogs were dead, supplies untouched, and the villagers were nowhere to be found. No signs of violence, fire, or struggle. No tracks in the snow leading away, and no logical explanation. Even more puzzling, radio communication towers in nearby regions had not picked up any distress signals or movement. The villagers seemed to have vanished into thin air. Contradictions and suppressed reports. But then, something strange happened. Over the years, official reports from the RCMP began to change. In later statements, they denied that any such event had taken place at all. They claimed there was no record of Joe LaBelle ever making a report, and no indication that an entire Inuit village had disappeared. But LaBelle's story had already been published in newspapers. Eyewitnesses remembered the search. Even some early RCMP archives referenced an investigation in the area during that time. So why the denial? Some believed the truth was covered up, not to avoid panic, but because they didn't know what to say. Theories. What could have happened? The collector presents you with the leading theories. 1. Sudden migration. Some skeptics believe the villagers simply moved away, perhaps due to food shortages or environmental conditions. But this fails to explain why they left food behind, why they left their weapons and dogs, why the graves were disturbed. This was not a planned evacuation. 2. Natural disaster. Could a blizzard, ice shift, or disease have struck? Again, no signs of trauma, footprints, or bodies were ever found. The scene was calm, not chaotic. 3. Mass alien abduction. One of the most enduring and controversial theories is that the entire village was taken by an unidentified flying object. LaBelle himself had reportedly seen mysterious lights in the sky over the lake the night before. Local legends also spoke of sky spirits and lights that stole people. Could there be truth to these ancient warnings? It's far-fetched, but it explains why nothing was ever found. 4. A rift in time or reality. Some theorists believe the village might have slipped into a dimensional rift, a thin spot between our world and another. This would explain the lack of tracks, struggle, or remains. No evidence supports this, but no evidence disproves it either. Cultural impact and legacy. The Anjikuni disappearance became a myth, a legend, and a cautionary tale in the north. Inuit elders still speak of it in whispers. It's been featured in books, podcasts, and paranormal TV shows. But what separates this from fiction is that it was once reported as fact. And the collector reminds you, sometimes the scariest mysteries are the ones no one is allowed to talk about. We live in a world that demands answers. But some events, like what happened at Anjikuni Lake, leave us with nothing but questions. No bodies, no motives, no footprints. Just a silent village, frozen in time. So what really happened? Was it a forgotten tragedy, a cosmic mistake, or something not meant to be known? Whatever the truth is, it never came back. If this mystery chilled your spine, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. The Collector has many more stories to share of disappearances, secrets, and truths buried beneath ice and time. Until next time, watch the skies.